Welcome into Brewers Daily. I'm your host, Dave Gasper, and you can follow me on Twitter at dgasper24. As we go through here these final couple of days before Christmas, we're seeing some teams, get some stuff going. Jeff McNeil just got traded to the don't call them Oakland, now Sacramento, but don't call them Sacramento, Las Vegas Athletics, as he's on the move over there. Maybe that clears path to Rhys Hoskins going to New York. Nah, probably not. I don't think they like him too much over there. But still, there's going to be some of that activity going on over there. The Brewers haven't been doing much, but that doesn't mean that there isn't still more left to do. Because as we're approaching Christmas here, coming up on Thursday, Matt Arnold still has a couple of things on his Christmas list that he's going to want to still accomplish here. He's going to want to see, maybe wrapped up underneath the tree this year. And there's really kind of two main things I think that he's still looking for when it's going to come to roster construction for 2026. The first thing, and I've talked about this a little bit before on previous Brewers dailies, a backup catching option to go along with Jefferson Caro. They got two catchers on the 40-man roster right now. I'd have to imagine they're going to bring in a third at some point this offseason. Who that is, who that might be, not entirely sure. I've thrown out a couple of names on previous shows where they could go. But I still think that's an area, as comfortable as they might be and as good as Matt Arnold might feel with Jefferson Caro, I'd have to imagine there's going to be a third one that's going to be brought in at some point here. He's going to want to get that just to have depth at the position, just in case something happens to Contreras or to Caro. You want to have that extra option to be able to turn to. Right now, they don't have it, so I'd have to imagine that is something on the wish list for Matt Arnold. And another thing on there, I think, is a right-handed reliever, because as you look at this Brewers bullpen group as it's constructed right now, they are kind of thin on right-handed relievers. Now, me being left-handed, I absolutely love that they've loaded up on lefties. Okay, you send out Nick Mears, you bring in Angel Serpa, so you bring in another lefty here. You also have, of course, in that group, you've got Rob Strizny, you got DL Hall, Aaron Ashby as well, you got Jared Koenig. So you got really kind of five guys. Now, I know two of them, Hall and Ashby, are going to be competing for rotation spots come spring. But odds are, again, at the most, one of them is going to end up winning one of those jobs. At least one of them is going to end up being back in the bullpen. So you've got like 4 or 5 legitimate left-handed bullpen arms that you can be going with here. Meanwhile, right-handed arms, you got 3 about in terms of proven guys, and 2 of them are essentially your closers. Trevor McGill and Abner Uribe are your right-handed bullpen arms. Then you got Grant Anderson in there as well as a kind of a regular middle relief right-handed guy. But other than that, I mean, you're looking at Craig Yoho, who, as much as we all like, and he was a very highly touted prospect, he didn't, he kind of disappointed a little bit last year, had struggles with command. Then you got Easton McGee as well. Those are your right-handed relief options on the 40-man roster. I have got to imagine that, Pat Murphy and Matt Arnold, they're going to want some other options there for that group. Now, granted, you got a couple of starters who you could throw in there as well. The Tobias Myers of the world, the Logan Hendersons of the world. You can maybe throw them as relievers, but still, in terms of having true just kind of legit one inning, one maybe 2 inning type relievers rather than converted starters. I think you're going to want at least one more option there for right-handed relief. So I'd have to imagine the Brewers going to want that somewhere here and put that still on their Christmas list in terms of things to accomplish here, as that relief market is kind of slowing down now. It was really hot for a while. The Brewers kind of struck with the Nick Mears trade. Things started to slow down a little bit. So perhaps Trevor McGill ends up staying the way that this relief market is kind of still going. But we could still see some activity there. And maybe something happens. But I think the Brewers ultimately are going to want to add at least one more right-handed reliever to this group, because they are very lefty heavy in that bullpen right now. Not that there's anything wrong with lefties, because again, I'm left-handed. I love them. The more lefties you have, the merrier. But I think in terms of balance, they're going to want to get at least one more there. And I think also on the Christmas list, now this is not really anything that you can get in free agency or trade or whatever else. But I think for this next year, Matt Arnold's going to want a better version of Joey Ortiz. The version of him that can hit. I think that's what he's going to want underneath the tree. and he's going to want the healthy version of Garrett Mitchell. I mean, if you get those two things under the tree this year for Matt Arnold, he is going to be happy as a clam. I mean, even just getting those, forget the backup catcher and the reliever. If he just gets those two things, a better version of Joey Ortiz at the plate and a healthy version of Garrett Mitchell, Matt Arnold's going to be a very happy camper. So I think those are going to be the big things really on Matt Arnold's wish list for Christmas this year. So that's something hopefully he's going to be able to get. Hopefully Santa can bring him the healthy version of Garrett Mitchell. I don't know why Santa's been holding out for him for so long, but still, maybe he can bring that. Maybe he can bring that better version of Joey Ortiz. But also a backup catcher and right-handed reliever, I think would be nice as well. Something for the Brewers to look at. That also is perhaps in their price range, but a bit more of a guarantee to actually end up happening. So I think those are going to be the areas that they want to look. But also, I think what Matt Arnold might want, and certainly what Brewers fans might want, excuse me, are, I got to clear the throat for this, are extensions. If the Brewers can get any of those done, contract extensions, I think that is also going to be high on that priority list for Matt Arnold. Now, extensions usually don't happen around this time of year. I think they're generally more likely to take place when we get into January, when we get to that arbitration filing deadline. We're going to have those contract conversations with some of these players. And also in spring training is where we're going to see a lot of those contract extensions. Those conversations take place during spring training. The front office is down there. All the players are down there. It's kind of more, getting ready for the season type thing. Team players are more willing to talk contracts. Players are willing to talk contracts before the season happens. So that's going to be more kind of that area, that January, February, into March kind of time is I think where we're going to see more of actual extensions. But who are the targets for the Brewers if they want to go this route? Because the best way to retain your talent and keep it long term is to sign it to long-term extensions prior to them reaching free agency, because the Brewers are not going to be going into the upper echelon of free agency as much as everyone might want them to. They're not going to. That's just a reality. So the best way to keep those guys long-term is to lock them up with extensions early on. That's what they did with Freddie Peralta, who's in the final year of his extension. That's what they did with Aaron Ashby. That's what they did with Jackson Chourio. That's what they did with Christian Yelich. Once they got him in, and he was an MVP essentially for 2 seasons, then they signed him to a new long-term deal. So where can the Brewers go for an extension next? There are 3 legitimate extension candidates that the Brewers have. And I think the highest priority one has got to be William Contreras. Now, I'm not so certain that an extension actually gets done, but if I'm the Brewers and I'm looking at this catching situation, William Contreras has 2 years left. Okay, so that means this year, 2026, is potentially his last year in Milwaukee if an extension doesn't get done. Because knowing the Brewers, knowing their past, as these guys get closer and closer to free agency, when it becomes clear that they are not going to be able to re-sign them, they trade them away. Okay, now there are some exceptions like Willy Adames, who they knew they were not going to sign to an extension, but they still kept him all the way through and just let him walk in free agency. Will the Brewers do that with William Contreras? Potentially. I mean, they absolutely love him. I mean, what he brings to the team as a leader, his toughness, offensively, how he runs the pitching staff. I think they're going to want to keep him, but we got about a year until those trade rumors are really going to pick up, because everyone else is going to know he's on that last year of team control. This is what the Brewers tend to do, and all those rumors are going to start flying, just like they've been flying about Freddie Peralta all offseason. They're going to be doing that next offseason for William Contreras. So the best way to get ahead of that, best way to prevent that, is to simply sign him to a contract extension. Now, we look last year, I mean, there were a lot of comps to Cal Raleigh because both him and Raleigh were entering their first year of arbitration. Raleigh ends up signing a $100 million contract extension with the Seattle Mariners. And that one proved to be quite the bargain right away as he hit just 60 bombs, just absolute tanks for Seattle all season long. It was fantastic. But yeah, 6 years, $105 million for Cal Raleigh. And I've got to imagine that if the Brewers are going to get something done with William Contreras, it's going to look something similar to that. Now, perhaps the fact that Cal Raleigh signed that deal and then put up the numbers that he did, perhaps that's good news. That may force the price tag actually down a bit for Contreras, because Contreras is obviously not 60 home runs type good. He's not quite to that level, but um, that could be someone who's like, okay, if someone that good signs for that much money, you're not quite as good as that. So you're going to have to settle for a little bit less because there's no way we can pay you more than Cal Raleigh's getting paid because Cal Raleigh is just simply way better. I mean, we saw it in the numbers this year. He was just way better. So still, but he signed that contract before he put up the numbers that he did. But still, somewhere in that range is where I would imagine it would cost for William Contreras to stay long term. Now, will the Brewers invest that much in a catcher? Will they actually gain any sort of traction on extension talks? I'm not so sure. I think Contreras would certainly be open to that, but it's going to come at kind of market value. It's going to be a pretty decent price tag, which may be more than the Brewers are simply comfortable going to, especially when they have Jefferson Caro, who's also right there in line, who they think could be an all-star caliber catcher going forward. Now, that is if his throwing arm returns to previous levels following his shoulder surgery, which we don't entirely know if it's going to yet. But I think that's an area where the Brewers have to really strongly look at William Contreras as an extension candidate. They've got to decide, is Caro the guy where we can afford to let Contreras walk and not give him an extension? Is Caro that guy? I'm not so sure they can say that yet. So until that gets proven, I think you got to very strongly look at an extension for Contreras. And then if Caro ends up being really, really good, and you already signed Contreras, great. You can maybe trade Caro for something else, for whatever it is that you need, if that's the route that you want to go. So I think that's a possibility you got to look at. I think also two other extension candidates for the Brewers. Not real shockers here. Sal Frelick, Bryce Terang. Those two have been, the best performing of this young core. They have been the most deserving of the long-term investment from this Brewers club. Bryce Terang, Platinum Glover at second base, and he took a great leap forward this year, a quantum leap forward, perhaps, if you will, especially in the power department being able to improve there. So he's continuing to make those steps offensively, growing and improving. And if you truly believe he can be that kind of power hitter, locking him in now may make the most sense for the Brewers to keep him around long term rather than waiting even longer. And then Sal Frelick, another Gold Glover. He's someone who is a key leader, a key piece on this club. So I think he's someone that I would expect to the Brewers to have some interest in a long-term extension in as well. But again, these guys are gonna, it's gonna cost a little bit of money in order to get them. But if the Brewers are going to extend anyone and view anyone that's not already extended as part of that future core for this team, it's Sal Frelick, it's Bryce Terang, it's William Contreras. Those are really the three that make the most sense for the Brewers to ultimately look to sign extensions to. Whether they get any of them across the finish line, I don't know. I'm not exactly holding my breath for it, but those would be the guys to look at for the Brewers to get some extensions in. But there's also one other name that I want to bring up. One other dark horse for an extension. Now, this is not necessarily going to be this year that this happens. This would be more likely next year as an extension candidate. But I think that could very well be Jesus Made. Because if we're looking at this, he's been on that Jackson Churio development track, right? He skipped over the Arizona Complex League. He quickly moved up, low A, high A, then made towards the end of the year into double A, just dominating every step of the way, quickly making himself an easy top 5 prospect in all of baseball. And for him to be on that path as a teenager, and where the Brewers view him and how the consensus among the industry views him, he's someone that I think next year, if he does well in Double A and he continues to check all the boxes that the Brewers are checking for him, I think he's someone who makes a lot of sense to sign to another Jackson Churio type deal because The Brewers signed Churio before he even made the majors. They signed him to an 8-year, $82 million deal. And if you can get Jesus Made on a similar type deal, because you view him as the shortstop of the future for you, if you can get him to do that, I think that's an easy win for the Brewers in order to get that done, because that locks in your shortstop going forward for the next 8 to 10 years, however long a contract ends up being. And that puts you in such a great spot going forward, because you have a very key position locked down. Shortstop is a very important position to have. So to have a very strong offensive shortstop and to keep him in the organization for years and years to come beyond his typical level of team control. So we don't have to have all the trade conversations a few years down the road. Because, I mean, being able to avoid that with Churio, where, now that he's entering, year three, it's like, oh, well, you got, maybe, 2 years left, and then trade rumors start, and then everyone's going to be thinking, oh, no, you're going to lose him. He's too good. You're going to lose him. You won't pay him. You're going to lose him. So rather than just have that conversation, you can keep him for an extra couple of years. If Made continues to perform well at Double-A this next season, I think he 100% is going to be an extension candidate next winter that the Brewers will look at to get him locked in long term, and then they'll call him up and he will be the shortstop of the future for this organization. So I think that's something to just keep in mind as we head in, now to this offseason. If the Brewers don't get any extensions done with their core, with Contreras, with Frelick, with Terang, if they don't get any done, as long as they're able to maybe get Jesus Made, I think that's going to be a big win for this Brewers organization. So we'll see what they end up doing. But there's still a lot more activity still to happen this offseason, and we'll be here with you every single step of the way on Brewers Daily. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter at dgasper24, and I'll have instant analysis on anything the Brewers do up over there. So very excited for that. And be sure to get notified every single time a new episode drops as we barrel towards Christmas here, and hopefully getting our Christmas lists answered, and hopefully Matt Arnold gets his answered as well for this roster. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Brewers Daily.